I'm proud of the men and women of the RCMP, proud of the work they do every day for Canadians, and I'm privileged to become their commissioner.
Bob Paulson, the new RCMP commissioner. That's him earlier today in Washington. Paulson is taking over as the top cop in some troubled times for the force. The RCMP is embroiled in a series of scandals. Morale is low and public confidence may be sinking. Have the Mounties finally got the right man? Shelly Glover is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance and a police officer on leave from the Winnipeg Police Service. Jasper Sandhu is the NDP's public safety critic, and Francis Scarpaleggi is the Liberal public safety critic. Good to see all of you. All right, so Bob Paulson takes over today. Immediately on his very first moment, he takes a question on the sexual harassment issue in the RCMP. Let me show you what he said about this. Listen to this.
First on my plate will be addressing the issue of harassment and sexual harassment in the workplace. I, like the rest of my colleagues in the RCMP, indeed like all Canadians, am very concerned about these recent allegations.
Recent allegations came from the high-profile Corporal Catherine Galliford, and you know about this, Shelly Glover. How much of a problem is sexual harassment in the RCMP?
Well, sexual harassment exists in every workplace, unfortunately, and that's why this is very troubling. There are processes that are developed in every workplace to deal with these, and that's why I'm so pleased that the Commissioner addressed it head-on. Our Minister was very clear that he wanted to speak with the Commissioner about this and did so very quickly. And he has said he's going to look at systemic failures in the system, and he wants to make sure that men and women in uniform serving with the RCMP are protected while they're doing a very dangerous job to protect Canadians.
But why did it take so long? You had RCMP Corporal Catherine Galliford come out. The very first day Mr. Paulson's on the job, the very first minute he's announced, he has to deal with this. It stands to reason that there's a pretty serious problem, and it begs the question, why did the RCMP wait so long to take it this seriously?
Well, it was taken seriously as soon as it came to light. In fact, the Minister has been engaged with this issue since it became public, and I can assure you that while he was following the process to announce the Commissioner, his office was engaged, he was engaged with the RCMP, and continues to be engaged in the file because he finds it very troubling. So again, I'm very pleased to see the Commissioner addressing this straight from the get-go, and I am confident that he is going to do as has been suggested and try to get to the bottom of this.
Jasper Sandhu, what does it tell you that the first order of business for Bob Paulson is to talk about sexual harassment? Is that a failure on the former Commissioner Bill Elliott?
Well, certainly, if you look at the history of it, the sexual harassment in the RCMP, these harassment allegations weren't just made last week. They were made prior to that. I'm pretty sure the officer that made these allegations, she's been on leave since 2007. So for the Minister to come in, step in right now and say, we're going to fix this, whereas they could have done this 3 years ago, 4 years ago, could have addressed this. So there is a systematic failure in a place how RCMP handles internal complaints, and that needs to be looked at, and that has to be satisfactory, accountable, and transparent.
Does the RCMP have a problem with women on its force?
Well, it certainly sounds like it. I mean, it's not just one case or two cases. That would be bad enough, but it's almost like a pandemic, really, inside the RCMP, or that's what it seems on from the outside.
Why do you say a pandemic when I mean, how many people do you know that have these issues? Because that's a pretty big word. We know that Corporal Galliford came forward, someone that Canadians know. Of course, she was out front on so many issues. She has some pretty startling allegations, pretty troubling. But why do you say that's a pandemic?
Well, it seems to have gone on for an extremely long period of time, and people are saying that they're hearing from other people. They can't publish names, but they're hearing from other people who were in similar circumstances. It doesn't seem to be an isolated case. Now, if there's a systematic problem, we have a new RCMP commissioner who was part of that system, so he would be in a very good position to tell us what he thinks the systematic problem is, and how it might have been addressed in the past, even if it was addressed not satisfactorily. But he would have certainly been aware of rumors or attempts to make things better, and would be able to tell us why he thinks attempts at change did not work.
Well, is that the case? I mean, you're shaking your head, but there's more than one who have come forward. Is there a systematic problem with sexual harassment in the RCMP that has not, frankly, been dealt with in a way that has been sufficient, which is why the new commissioner has got to get on it?
The reason I'm shaking my head, Evan, is because I am saddened by what's been said by this member. There's about 15% of every police force, that's a national average approximately, of women who are working in police forces across this country. And they do a wonderful job. They are free typically from any kind of fear, any kind of sexual harassment. And yes, there are cases that occur. It occurs in doctors' employment fields. It occurs in politics. Sexual harassment is a terrible thing.
But it doesn't excuse it that it's everywhere. The question here is it endemic within the RCMP, and members are having trouble getting dealing with it, and there's no one being accountable for it?
As I say, there is a process. There's been some kind of a failure in the process, which happens. It happens again in every single occupation that we see. I spent 4.5 years investigating sexual abuse. Okay, I know that this happens in other places, but what we have to make sure is that the men and women who suffer any kind of sexual harassment, that the process actually works, that the investigation happens.
But you said there's a failure in the process. I guess my question is, what is that failure? Can you point to it?
And that's what we're going to have the commission who look at public complaints against the RCMP. That we're going to ask the president to look at this. The commissioner is engaged on this file, but I don't want anyone to leave this interview thinking that the men and women who serve for these police forces aren't doing it proudly, and that they're faced with this pandemic. That's just a horrible word.
I think the key is
how
long, if there was a failure, as you say, how long has it gone on for? How many women were affected? Who was accountable? Who's accountable for the failure? Those are legitimate questions.
They are legitimate questions.
And the fact of the matter is, the Harper government has dropped the ball on the RCMP file. Whether it's contracting in BC, whether it's establishing oversight, civilian oversight in the RCMP, and we have huge issues, and they have surfaced in the last 4 years because of lack of leadership right from the top, from the government, including the last commissioner that we had, that had serious problems with all the senior RCMP officers.
How many police officers are in your caucus? 0. How many in yours? 0. We have 11. 11 in our caucus.
Evan, let me tell you, I have worked at the Justice Institute. I've dealt with police officers. A lot of my colleagues were police officers. So I have worked with them. I have trained them. I have been part of it. So I know what a police officer is.
Not the same at all.
No one's impugning police officers. As a matter of fact, we had a police officer before Public Safety Committee yesterday, and my preamble, I thanked him for the work he does to keep our community safe. And I hope that the situation within the RCMP is not as bad as it looks, admittedly, at the moment. But we have the advantage here of having a commissioner from the inside who appears to be an extraordinarily decent and experienced and an honorable member of the RCMP. He's been on the inside, so he can give us some insight into where the problems may lie before even...
let me ask you, all you guys talk about, he's been on the inside, and I get it, but when Bill Elliott was appointed, the whole purpose of him was, here's an outsider, here's a civilian. He's supposed to fix it because in the wake of some of the issues with the RCMP, you needed an outsider away from the culture. Now the change is, the good news is, after Bill Elliott, now we've got an insider. So the public must look at that and go, okay, hold on. What needs to be fixed at the RCMP? Do you need an outsider to deal with the culture there, or do you need an insider to deal with the culture?
I think the issue is
you need the best
you need a person of integrity, of great experience, who has served for a long time, and Mr. Paulson has also been in the military, so he brings frontline experience, he brings military experience, organizational experience, and that's the issue. It's not so much of being inside or outside, though I think as a respected member of the force, he may have an easier time getting cooperation from other members of the force and obtaining the loyalty of the force.
Okay, I got about a minute left. Mr. Sandy, you're from BC.
Absolutely. Okay,
there's been real issues with the RCMP in BC. The Robert Chikansky case, of course, the death of the 22-year-old Alvin Wright in Langley in 2010. Mr. Paulson's from British Columbia. Are you confident that someone with the experience from that province can restore confidence in the RCMP? And if so, what's the first thing you think he needs to do?
Well, the government needs to provide the RCMP with tools that they can work with in order to resolve a lot of these issues that have come up. And one thing we could start with is a civilian oversight over the RCMP, which the Conservatives seem to want to do, and this is one of the things they can do. The other thing we can do is start looking at the roles and responsibilities of federal policing in the provinces, how we negotiate, what is accountability, what is transparency. The Auditor General reported in her report in June that the federal government needs to take a leadership in regards to clarifying accountability, clarifying roles and responsibility. Clearly, the Harper government has missed the ball on this one. They have missed it with the last commissioner, and they have, basically left the RCMP force alone.
What do you think the first thing? I mean, there's a sexual harassment. There's some real issues here that the opposition has talked about. What does Mr. Paulson have to do to restore confidence in the RCMP after a series of pretty devastating stories that have come up?
Well, first of all, I'm going to disagree with the statement. I believe most Canadians are very proud of the RCMP and have confidence in the RCMP. I believe most of the members of the RCMP believe that they are competent.
Just to be fair, there's been a morale issue within it after Bill Elliott, and the cases like the Jacansky case were very damaging to the force, as you know.
And that's why I say that I disagree with the statement about confidence in the RCMP. It's a fantastic force that we have, and I have the utmost confidence in what they're doing. But there are some challenges, and so the Commissioner has addressed them this morning, and he plans to take these very seriously and act very, very quickly, and I look forward to him doing that. I also look forward to the Commission for Public Complaints Against the RCMP taking an active role in the investigation into the sexual harassment issue.
We'll follow that. Jasbir Sandhu, Francis Scarpaleggia, Shelly Glover, I appreciate your time today. Thanks.
Thanks.